Moving forward with the missing operators game from the YByte Python programming classes, we have created here a skeleton on which we can build forward. Notice here I take two numbers and now my program asks me a question which is nicely formatted. There are clearly at least two improvements that I could think of to this game. There are many more of course, but two must have improvements. Number one, we should consider making the operators a little bit random so that the game is interesting, because right now it's always addition, but it'll be good to have a bit of randomness. Number two, and this is also necessary, is that we must figure out if the user's answer is correct or not. We haven't yet done any of these, but you can imagine that once we have sorted all this, then we can look at creating multiple operators and so on, and make the game a lot more interesting. However, going step by step, let's ask ourselves, how do I make questions a little bit random? In fact, the answer really is to pick up a random number, and depending on the number chosen, we can choose an operator. Question then comes, how do I pick up a random number? Well, the way we do that in Python is to use a module called random. So I just go and say import random, and then I just pick up an integer, for example, OP, which is random dot random. Now be careful on this, is a dot like a full stop over here, 02. Now for those of you coming from Scratch background, really this should not rattle you. Syntax of course you have to know, but really this statement here is exactly same as pick random 0 to 2 from Scratch days. So let's just do this, and I'm picking up 0 to 2 because I want 0, 1 and 2, because remember my operators are plus, minus and multiply. So let's just go back to our code. So what I'm going to do, like I said in the beginning, I'm going to import random. We'll talk about this in a moment. Random is is an external module that I'm importing. Once having done this, I'm going to just say, look, let me, instead of just doing this, say addition, for example, let me get a variable called OP. This is going to be an integer, and that is given by random.rand int, say 0, 2. Like I said, this basically means exactly same as the Scratch pick random 0 to 2. So if I keep running this code, and let's say I do a print of OP just for just to see the output. If I keep running this code again and again, let's say so I said 12, 32. This time OP was 2. Let's just run this again. So if I run this again, let's say tell me a number, say 32, whatever, 23. This time notice OP, which is being printed here, is 0, and that's not surprise because every time we run this code, a random OP is being picked up. Now we'll see how we use this OP, but let's just take a slight detour at this point of time. Try to understand what does import mean. Again, the idea really is simple, that Python codes are usually built not just by writing your code yourself, but you can also use code that's written by maybe yourself some other time, or by some other people. So what we are doing by import is essentially bringing in another piece of code into your program. And once you do that, then you can call functions that are, for example, inside this code. Now in this case we have imported random. Sometimes you also write random as something, but here we have not done the as part. So you just say import random, and remember I'm using a function called randint, which gives me a random integer. So I just go and say random.randint. Now if I had done import random as r, then I could have done r.randint, whatever limits, whatever inputs that I wanted to give. So that way we can use, let's say code that is written elsewhere into our program, and that's why this is so important and so powerful. An analogy here helps. Import statement is a little bit like adding extensions in Scratch. Remember, these are all there. When we need them in our program, then we pull them in. For example, many times we brought in the pen extension. A lot of students used to use text to speech and so on and so forth. Quite similar in a way that this code exists, but it becomes a part of your program only after you add the extension. So kind of, just for understanding, you can think of import that way. But now the question comes, all right, so I have this, variable OP, which is basically 0, 1 or 2. How can I make use of this? Well, it's actually quite simple now, because all I can do is that I can say if my OP is 0, then I'm going to do an add. If my OP is 1, then I'm going to do a subtract, and if my OP is 2, I'm going to do a multiply. Let's see how we do this in code here. So notice I don't need to print OP. I'm just going to comment this out. So I just go and write a code, if OP equals to 2 equals to 0. Notice OP is an integer, that's why I compare this against a number 0, not a string 0, because OP is really a number can be compared to number. So I say if OP is equal to 0 with a colon there, then RHS is equal to num1 plus num2. On the other hand, if say OP is equal to 1, then as I told you, we are using subtraction. So I say RHS equals to num1 minus num2. And finally, if OP is equal to 2, then I say RHS is equal to num1 multiplied by num2. Remember, we are doing 3 operators. I'm just going to give a little bit of space here so it looks easier to read. Now I can remove this. We will talk about the syntax of the if then else of the if statement here. I just want to make a point that we can in fact write this a little bit differently using the if else statement. If you're familiar with that, go ahead and do it. But this will work. Let's just see this working. Now notice when I run this code, let's just try this number. So I say it says tell me a number. I say for example 12. Next number I say 32. This time round, notice it has picked up a random operator, and I can see that it has picked up a multiplication. Of course, I can answer anything right now because I'm not checking for the correctness of the answer. Let's say, tell me a number. So I say basically 23. I say 45. Again, it's turned out that this guy took up a multiplication. But if you run this again and again, you will find that in fact, so again it is multiplication. But let's just see this. Maybe you'll run this once again, and hopefully we'll see something else happening, right? So let's say 23 and say 54. Yeah, notice this time down it has picked up addition. So now the game has become more interesting because the operator is being picked up randomly, and hence the user has to think what has happened here. What is the operator that has been picked up? Now I'll pause this here. Like I said, later on we'll look at the syntax of the if statement more closely and what's going on with respect to indentation over here. We'll come back to that in the next video. But before I wrap this up, just one comment that the if statement that we have used here is in fact exactly same as the if then statement that we had in Scratch. As I told you guys then, this is a gate. So if, for example, this condition is true, or let's say op is 0 in this case, then we are setting RHS to num1 plus num2. The way I write this in Python is if op 2 equals to 0s, I get RHS is num1 plus num2. The logic is exactly the same. The syntax, like I said, we'll spend a little bit more time looking at it in a separate video. I hope this gave you kind of gets you a decent understanding to move forward. And as I said before, if you like to learn programming this way, using activities, using fun projects, do look at our website ybyte.in because there are many such activities over there. Take care. Thank you so much. Bye bye.